What's going on, people? It is Irish Gunner HD here, you can call me Irish, and welcome to part 2 of my GTA 5 on PC, not necessarily benchmark, but just kind of having a look at the game, checking out the settings, the performance and stuff like that, particularly on my setup. So, and I know it's a pretty common setup, it's a generally common setup. It's an NVIDIA Asus Strix GTX 970 and an overclocked i5 3570K from Intel. Now, it's overclocked to 4.2 gigahertz. I can't remember the voltage or anything like that. But it's running on a Cooler Master Hyper 212 Evo. Again, very common kind of CPU cooler. So hopefully this will apply to a lot of people. There is a part 1, which is max settings. So I'll leave a link in the description and an annotation on the screen. Go and check that out. This is part 2, which is going to be the minimum settings. So basically we're going to see kind of what the max frame rate we can get for making the game look as awful as possible. But yeah, obviously, if you've got a lower end setting, a lower end rig, or you just don't want to be kind of lagging in the 40s and 50s and dropping down into the 30s like I was on the maximum settings, or for whatever reason, basically, for whatever reason that you want to just crank the settings down, we're just going to see what kind of performance you can get on the minimum settings. So, just first off, I want to correct some mistakes I made in the first video. I forgot to turn VSync off, which is, luckily enough, it wasn't a big deal because I wasn't reached anywhere near 60. Really at all, so it wasn't really that big of a deal, but just for kind of clarity's sake, to see what the top frame rates we were getting was, I should have had it off. Have it off now, and then I've got everything else off pretty much. Everything's off or minimum or scrolled down to the left as much as possible, basically, as you can see. And we're not even using the gigabyte of memory. So again, if you've only got a 1 gig card, you probably can get away with this game, on you'll be running it close. You'll be running it very close. Again, 997, but you should get away with it. Don't go out and buy the game if you don't hold me responsible. I'm not advising you if you've only got 1 gigabyte card, but I'm just saying it seems like it'd be possible if you've got a 1 gig card, since I'm not using an entire gigabyte. So I don't know how it works, but yeah, that's that information out of the way. So let's get out into the world and have a look. First off, I wanted to point out this. I didn't know that they implemented Minecraft into the game. Hey, that's bad. That's really not a nice reflection. Yeah, that's bad. So, what I thought we would do is just do the same thing. Just kind of go out and walk around a little bit on foot, then get into a car, drive around. No pre-planned. As I said, it's not a benchmark. So we're not trying to kind of redo the same sections over and over again for like maximum closeness of numbers and stuff like that. We're just kind of doing it in a real world sort of scenario. So, oh, there's a few though. I spent probably more than a day out of my life on the console trying to find this fucking car, and now there's one literally parked up beside. Oh, and there's one passes me as well. That's fantastic. Ah, that makes me sad, but also kind of happy because they're cool. But anyway, yeah. So, let's talk frame rate. Well, no, first let's talk appearance. It doesn't look great. When you're driving fast like this, it's hard to really notice. It's not really terrible. There's stuff like pop-in and stuff like that off the distance. Shadows and that kind of thing. Like the fact that there's no anti-aliasing at all just kills me personally, because my kind of top 3 things... Go away, Lamar. My top 3 kind of things that I look for in a PC game as far as graphics go is, first of all, AA. I despise Jaggies. I really can't stand them. I feel like in 2015 on a rig like mine, I shouldn't have to deal with Jaggies at all. So when I can, I max out AA. Secondly is texture settings. Again, I think that's kind of ubiquitous to most people. Nobody likes ugly textures. I can put up with like pretty bad textures, but like I'd like them to be as good I like them to be as good as possible, like, do you know, kind of way. And then third would be shadows, because that's something that developers often kind of skimp on. They'll make shadows look really hideous, and it's really noticeable, because especially in a lot of games now where they're going for like a realistic lighting kind of aspect, where there is a lot of shadows and they are kind of prominent and easy to notice when they're not good, like, do you know, kind of way. So kind of in that order, that's where I'd like the perform, or the kind of appearance to performance kind of spectrum to be. So if I could get really good anti-aliasing, then some decent textures, and then some decent shadows, and also like stuff like anti I can't remember the word. Filtering for textures. I cannot remember the word at all. It's completely gone from my head. But yeah, like a bit of that doesn't cost anything, so cranking that up is always good. But yeah, so again, going back to the actual test that we're looking at here. Everything's minimum, so it doesn't look great. It's very jaggy. We're driving around really fast, so let's just get out and smell the roses a little bit. Let's have a look at some textures. Kitty! Right, well, shadows. Awful. Really poor. I mean, you can tell that it's a body and that's a tree, but they're very, very jaggy. Very jaggy shadows. Right, textures. Not pretty. Not pretty at all. The text all jaggy and stuff like that. Again, not awful. Not completely awful, but not great whatsoever. So many kitties. That's a nice fucking kitty, boys. Bit of bubbles. Let's see, what other kind of textures? Text is always the thing. Like that, I can almost not even read that text. Security cameras are operating in this area. Okay, but like like people would struggle to read that text. If you can't read the text, your textures, like look at that. Okay, fair enough. Right, we're in a back alley. Not many people are coming in here looking at the texture, but still, it's not particularly nice. Let's see, like the dirt on the bins on. It's just really bad. Just random bottles. Apparently the only thing that gets thrown out of this building is water bottles and lace. But anyway, right? Oh my god, that's the something of this property will something join something. Can't read it. Can't read the texture. But again, the frame rates are great, so I guess it is that trade-off that you have to make. So yeah, so that's how it looks. It doesn't look particularly great. It doesn't look awful. Doesn't look awful by any means. Again, I don't mean to sound like an entitled little dickhead, but like it's just a fact. It doesn't look as good as games do or can nowadays. But yeah, definitely. If you're willing to make the trade-off, it doesn't look terrible. I shouldn't be so harsh on it. Like it's still a very nice, modern-looking game. Oh, there's a few up here too. Sweet. They're everywhere. What was I going to say next? Okay, so frame rates. So as you can see, or as you can... No, you can't see actually. As I can see on my GeForce experience thing, haven't dropped below 60 at all. Haven't even come close to 60, I don't think. It's been mostly in the 100s, 80s, 70s. So pretty good. My problem with this is, and I feel dumb because I feel like I've said this already because this is like my third take of this, but if I've said it again, if I've said it already, I apologize. But my problem with the game is the inconsistency in the frame rate. It's not really terrible on these minimum settings. You won't notice it in these minimum settings, but the frame rate is really inconsistent. Like even, you won't notice it, but it's happening. 1 minute in one area, you'll be on 100 frames per second. Then you'll drive somewhere that's a little more kind of densely populated or densely, like, got more grass or higher textures needed or something like that. Or like more like polygons or geometry or whatever like that. And all of a sudden it'll go from that 100 down to 80 or 70. Like it will jump really fast and it's noticeable. It's weird. Like it is definitely noticeable when that kind of thing happens. And then it'll kind of jump back up to 90 and then it'll like hover in the 70s and then it'll go back down to 80 and then it'll jump up to 100. Like it's really inconsistent. Yes, it's always above 60, so it's still always fluid, but it's noticeable that it's inconsistent. Like as I'm going through it now, I was in the low 80s, now I'm in the 90s, down into the 70s, like 75 up to 82. Oh. Drift it. Nah, wasn't perfect. But yeah, basically, it's that inconsistency that I'm not a big fan of. Oh, that shadow, though. Whoa, that was cool. I thought the plane was going to be, like, right overhead. That was far away, and it cast that big shadow. That would have been nice to see on, like, max ultra shadows and stuff like that. But, yeah, yeah, so I guess I've said about everything that I can. You can see that it performs great. We're kind of stuttering a little bit even though we were in the 70s there. That was strange. But yeah, so you can see that the performance is great. It doesn't look good. So next we're going to see how we can make it look good, but have the performance still be good. Because obviously that's what you want. It would be great if we could all just max it out and run it at 60 frames per second plus consistently. But obviously that's not particularly realistic, so we'll have to see. Trying to think, is there anything else? No, I think that'll be it. So if you haven't seen part 1 again, go back and check that out just to see what the kind of the max settings performance was. And yeah, I think that's about it. So if you enjoyed it, please do leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new here. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.